Ricky, probably don't need to ease you in too much this week. I think I know where you're going to start.
Yeah, there's a huge, I would call it a huge fight, I'd say. There's a huge event brewing in Las Vegas, where we've just come from. Obviously we had a little taste of some of the build-up while we were out there. We saw Floyd. I've seen Floyd over a period of years. I mean, I actually remember him when he just signed with Top Rank at the start of his pro career after the Olympics. And I have seen, I mean, I'm not trying to drum it up as this is an equal fight, because I absolutely don't think it is, but I will say I noticed probably about 2 or 3 years ago Floyd had slowed down, and I noticed definitely when we went this time he isn't the same guy. I mean, for one, look, now he's a super welterweight as opposed to a super featherweight, so he would be a bit slower because, you know, the featherweights are quicker. But I did notice, I thought, this guy, he isn't what he was before. Me personally, I still think that's going to be too much for McGregor. I think it's an interesting fight. Certain aspects of it I really haven't liked. I thought in the build-up maybe it was a bit too crass. I don't think it reflects particularly well on the pay-per-view buyers. That's what, you know, obviously the reason they're behaving like that is in this sort of thuggish, you know, swearing and
because that's what sells.
Because that's what sells, and it's a little bit disappointing that in our society, you know, that's what people want, that's what people buy into. I'm actually not anti-MMA. Like, if I'm in a hotel and there's boxing on or MMA, 99.9% I'll watch boxing. But if there's no boxing on, I will watch MMA. But I mean, because this is being sold not to boxing fans. I guarantee this is being sold to MMA fans, the people that are buying the tickets, the people that are betting on the fight. There's more bets being placed on McGregor than there has on Mayweather. I mean, that's incredible. That's absolutely astounding. And it's because of the demographic that the fight is attracting that you're seeing that. Because if it was attracting a hardcore boxing audience, I can tell you 99.9% of the people would be backing Mayweather. He's got proven pedigree over 12 rounds. McGregor has got none. And yet people they're buying into this sort of a diatribe that McGregor, because he's a tough guy from Ireland. I mean, it's crazy, really. I think having seen the sparring with Malignaggi and prior to that with Chris Van Heerden, you'd think really McGregor, I mean, he wouldn't beat in the UK. I would happily place money on, I mean, the current Southern Area champion, I manage him, Senior Byfield. And I mean, Senior Byfield, and what I've seen of McGregor, I mean, Senior would absolutely hammer him. He would destroy him. He would pick him apart and turn him inside out. And this isn't Senior Byfield's fight, it's Floyd Mayweather. So
how do you see the fight going? Break it down step by step.
I think
round one, ding ding.
No, I think, well, I don't think the first round will be particularly entertaining, because I think Floyd, despite what he's saying, he's going to take it to him. He has sort of sometimes indicated that's what his intention is, and then he doesn't do it. And I think this could well be that. I think Floyd will have a look. I think he'll keep McGregor working. He'll keep him on the end of his jab. He'll be looking for gaps as to where he can place his harder shots, but maybe not actually throw in the hard shots early on. He's just going to be very cautious, because look, McGregor can punch. That I think we can take for granted without having had any fights. Even if he's been hitting people with those tiny gloves they use in MMA, he has been knocking people out, and it does look like that's his strength in fighting is his punching. For me though, the technique that he has, it's not comparable to a boxer, and the guys he's been hitting have not had defences comparable to a boxer. You've also got the physical aspect, whereas boxers are used to being hit, they're conditioned to take shots to the head and take shots to the body, and the MMA guys aren't. If you watch MMA, they throw less punches, they get hit with less, they don't fight inside. As soon as they're in close, they're grappling, they're on the floor, and then it's a different sport. In boxing, fighters stand toe to toe, in close, in front of each other, not going anywhere, and that means that the footwork is very different. The capacity to absorb body punishment is for me is a big factor in this, because I think.
Do you think Floyd's going to break him down with body shots over the rounds and then,
I do,
and then put it on late or something?
Yeah, and that's not any inside information that I've had from Floyd, but that's me looking at Floyd and looking at McGregor and thinking, right, well, what are you going to do? Because
that's your matchmaker brain going.
Yeah, and when I first finished boxing myself, I used to put almost like, what would I do? What would I do? But this isn't about what I would do. You evolve as a boxing trainer, if you like. You evolve to a point where it's about what can this guy do. And Mayweather, despite his sort of pretty boy moniker, he is a hard man. McGregor is not tougher than Mayweather. I don't even think McGregor is as tough as Mayweather. Mayweather is one solid guy. And why do I say that? Because he's been in with big punches and he's toughed it out. He's had those fights where he's been tested and he's come through it almost unanimously with shining colours. You know, he knows.
It wasn't too long ago that he schooled a much bigger guy and now world champion at middleweight, Saul Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah, and I think that there's a good indication in that, because not Alvarez is similar to McGregor, but a lot of the question marks that people are saying, oh, McGregor will be bigger, blah blah. Yeah, he probably will be bigger. But if it was all about being big, it would just be like the biggest man in the world would get in there and he's a champion. You know, that's not what happens. I think the skill set is very different, and even if he's had a few months, and even if when he was doing his MMA he was doing boxing then, and even if he boxed as an amateur, that's not the same as having in-depth experience at world level as a pro boxer. It's just there's no comparison to it, and you can't learn it in 6 months. You can't. Those guys, their range, the way that they get their timing, and their sort of the way they develop their skill set, it's years and years of getting it ready. And Mayweather's had that, and McGregor hasn't. And I think ultimately that will be telling in the fight.
Do you think? So you're saying Mayweather will pick him apart, work out where to pick him apart, then maybe start picking him apart. How do you see the later stages of the fight going?
I think he will outbox him. And I'm going to say picking. Yeah, he'll outbox him. I think he will. I'm imagining he will look to move inside as quickly as possible. Probably not the first couple of rounds because that's risky. But I think the first opportunity, the first time he sees McGregor slowing, I think he'll be right inside, fighting him, whacking them body shots in. And you've got to think, in MMA they don't take repeated punches, because they take maybe 1 or 2 and then it's on the floor, or you know, they go back to kicking and it's a big, like long range and moving outside of where they can get hit. But in boxing you can't. Boxing you can stand in front of someone, and that's what I think Mayweather's ultimately his plan is going to be, just to get inside. And like I say, this isn't from anyone talking to me in his gym, this is just from knowing Floyd well as a fighter. And I just think his big advantage is going to be in close, landing solid body shots. I think there's been quite a lot about Floyd struggling maybe with Conor's movement and his footwork, and I expect actually Conor to be quite unusual in how he moves and how he positions himself, because in MMA the positioning is very different, and that's actually worked for Conor in MMA, so he's probably going to have at least elements of that he's going to bring in against Floyd. But I think it won't be long before, right, boxing ring is a boxing ring. You can't run around to the extent that you can in MMA and find that space. And when you've got a guy who knows he's got your number and he's then taking that risk of standing inside, catching a punch and countering immediately, I just think McGregor's going to have a big problem at that point.
Do you think he'll last to 12?
Okay, well, as you know, I'm a gambling man.
Yeah, let's get into the odds. Let's talk about gambling. Where's your money?
Okay, well look, first I'll answer the first one. I think my money is on Mayweather winning. Whether it's by decision, I think if I had to put my last penny on it, I will say stoppage. I think either stoppage, or I think you might even see McGregor sustain some sort of, this is like the cynic in me saying, he sustained some sort of injury, like a back injury or a shoulder injury, or a hand injury that prevents him from carrying on, because in the back of his mind that might leave the path open to boxing again against Mayweather, which means they double their money. We all know these guys want to earn as much as they can. Realistically, I don't think that's what will happen. I think what will happen is he'll just be outclassed. I think he'll persist to a degree, but I think around the midway stage in the fight, to be getting hit that many times, he'll never have been hit this many times, this hard, this accurately, ever, in any training, in any MMA fight that he's ever had. And I think that will be telling, and I think it'll be interesting to see what movement he brings in and what sort of problems that poses to Floyd and how Floyd deals with it. But ultimately this isn't a boxing ring where Floyd is very much at home. He's faced all different kinds of opponent. He's faced tough guys that come forward, he's faced movers, counter punchers, and I think here you're going to see a situation where he imposes his pace, his range, his style of fight, and Conor is going to have to do what he can to cope with that, not the other way around. I think Mayweather's going to adjust massively what his normal game plan would be. Only that I think he'll respect Conor's power early on, and I think that might cause the fight to be not so entertaining early on, but technically it will be, you know, it'll be interesting. I think work rate wise, again, Floyd has shown that he's got that work rate, and in MMA when they get inside they lock and they grapple and they end up normally doing a takedown. They're on the floor. That's very, very different physiologically to getting inside and you're working sometimes 120 punches around, staying in range and just moving to open up the angles. And Conor's got zero experience of that, and that's where I just think it's completely unrealistic to expect him to be able to compete, much as he'll try, you know. And he'll, I think if Conor's got a chance to do anything in this fight, I think he doesn't actually have any option. I think the only way he can have any kind of chance is to turn it as close as he can into a street fight. And you've got to remember, if you look at Conor in his fights in MMA, which is closer to a street fight than boxing, he's not a come forward sort of
guy. He's a counter-puncher almost.
Yeah, he stands off, and absolutely, he's a counter-puncher, and he doesn't like having to go into the other guy and fight. That's not the way that he chooses to fight. He stands off and tries to pick off from long range. Well, I can tell you, Floyd's a lot better than him at doing that. So he has to alter his tactics, and I think Floyd actually won't try and pick him off from long range because he's naturally slightly shorter and smaller, and I think he will look to draw a lead, get inside, and then just keep working. And I think it's the big body shots that will be sickening for McGregor, that will knock the stuffing out of him and take the wind out of his sails. I think if Conor can force the pace on Mayweather, I think it makes a much more entertaining fight, and he's got a chance of walking away from it actually with a lot of credit, because at least people will say, well, we saw a guy give all he could, fight his heart out and get beat. If he gives anything less than that, which I think if he tries to outbox Floyd, please God no, but if he tries that tactic, then I think he just gets, it'll just be a mockery, and I think he'll be booed to the rafters, and it will be a terrible, I mean the mismatch that it is will be exposed very blatantly, and I think then people walk away really with a bad taste in their mouth. So for him, I think he has to get stuck in, he has to fight not his usual tactic, he has to move away from that, he has to just get stuck, and there's a big risk in that he gets caught with a counter, because Floyd will see gaps and he might not jump on it at first because he'll think he'll be very wary of this supposed power that McGregor's got, but if he keeps getting shown that same mistake twice, 3 times, 4 times, he'll know when to pounce on it, and then you could see a stunning knockout and Conor actually getting knocked out early.
So betting, you're putting your money on?
Okay, Oh, 100% I'd put it on Floyd. I think normally in a pay-per-view fight like this, where it's so one-sided, you'll get extensive propaganda going out the night before, because obviously they're trying to drive sales, and if you're selling it as a one-sided mismatch, then you're not going to get that sort of interaction with people. But I think here we've got a situation where they can sort of, to me they're not credible arguments, but they can make noise and they can say, oh, you know, McGregor's got this huge heart and Floyd doesn't like southpaws.
Do you think that noise will affect the odds? Do you think they're going to fluctuate much over the next day or two?
I do. I think you will see Friday morning, Friday lunchtime. I think you will see people betting on McGregor.
Is that your top tip for them to put your money on Floyd?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't like to choose between stoppage. In my heart of hearts, I think stoppage, but I think from a betting point of view, just safety first. I think just put a win, because you'll never get, and the odds do not represent. The reason the odds are what they are is because so many people, so many peanut-sized brain MMA junkies are ploughing money on McGregor because they've bought into this PR blurb that it's going to be a close fight and that McGregor's, you know, Irish and got a big heart, etc. Blah blah. You all know. And for that reason, it's going to be an entertaining fight, and he's got a chance of winning. For me, he's 1,000 to 1, and the odds are like 4 to 1, 4 to 1 on.
So it's the longest odds on one of the safest.
It's the safest bet you'll ever get at 4 to 1 on, and the reason why, because the bookies can't afford to adjust their to keep the odds on the actual chance of what
representative.
To keep the odds representative, the actual chance is because of the volume of bets on. And if you go, I went onto a odds checker and they were saying over half of the bets, not the volume of bets, but over half of the bets have been on McGregor. People are betting, and it's people watching, you know, the UFC blurb, and what can you say? You know, they're obviously not educated in boxing, but they've educated, or they've bought into this story that they've been sold, and they think that McGregor's got a much better chance than what I think he has.
So you're saying Floyd, take the win. Take the win.
I think just take the win. I mean, if I wouldn't say a stoppage is a bad bet. I'd say it's a good bet, but I'm saying there's too many unknowns as to how Floyd. I think it's more what Floyd decides to do. If Floyd decides just to outbox him, if Floyd gets a taste of the power and thinks, do you know what? I'm not messing around with this guy. He has got knockout power, which I believe he could well have, and then Floyd then decides, well, I'm just not going to give him a chance to hit him. And all this, like, Connor's a southpaw. And look, who? This is a question you've got to ask yourself. Who is the best southpaw of our generation, of our era? And the answer to that, I think, it has to be Manny Pacquiao. And how many problems did Manny Pacquiao cause Floyd? 0. And Manny Pacquiao's a much better southpaw than Conor McGregor. I mean, you can't compare them. That's another mismatch. So I don't think, but Floyd doesn't like southpaws. I mean, to me, that's just, it's garbage. I think, you know, Floyd's very experienced. Go in his gym, it's full of southpaws, and he deals with them all handily.
They've asked for special dispensation, should we say,
and
for 8-ounce gloves. Yeah, 8-ounce gloves.
Yeah, and Nevada State Athletic Commission.
Do you think they're just seeing dollar signs?
Well, it's the only explanation there can be. There's no reason why they would. Those rules are there for, you know, they're there for, you know, we need to have rules in boxing, and they're there for safety. Huge amount of money, and I absolutely don't believe for 1 second what Floyd is saying. We wanted it to be fair. Floyd's an astute businessman. He knows he's going to be hitting Conor a hell of a lot more than what Conor's going to be hitting him. And if he's doing it with smaller gloves, he's going to have a lot bigger chance of knocking him out and getting him out of there. Yeah, there's a slightly bigger chance of him getting caught with shots, but I mean, I can't see Conor really. I saw one American journalist, Max Kellerman, saying he doesn't think Conor will land a single shot on him. Depending on how he boxes, if he cramps forward and just goes for it, I think he might well land 1 or 2 shots, but I can't see the glove size being to his advantage, because I think Floyd will hit him a hell of a lot more times and more accurately. Conor does actually look like he's got some power, but
you don't think in short, you think the 8-ounce gloves is only going to favour Floyd?
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be punching Conor all over the place. He's going to be hitting him from angles. He's going to be stepping inside, body, head, body. I think you're going to see. It might be a masterclass from Floyd. He might start, putting it on him and
rolling back the years.
Yeah, almost using it as an exhibition to show his skills off. That would be entertaining.
It would be nice to see him go out like that, if this is indeed his last fight.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's saying he's going to come to McGregor and he's going to take it to him. I mean, look, if he reverts to type, then that's exactly what he won't do. He'll just be safety first. He'll outbox him. And the thing is, look, McGregor 2 years ago was like an unknown. Okay, now he's a big name and everyone wants to see. Well, that tells me that in 2 years' time there can be another. I mean, UFC can just generate another unknown to replace McGregor, and that guy can fight Floyd. Floyd isn't gonna. I've heard like this rumour, but Floyd will lose so they can have a right. Floyd generates massive money.
Based on that zero
fight, 0 chance of that, and he is the draw. Much as McGregor can be lauded and talked about, he's the draw. He's the one who, McGregor's never earned anywhere near the money that he's getting for this fight his whole career, let alone just for one fight. Mayweather has. He's already banked that amount and more. Now
he was claiming while we were there that he earned $50 million before he'd even laced up a glove.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if that was accurate, but if he says so, who are we to
doubt him?
To dispute with him, yeah. But I think, okay, so your best price will come out Friday lunchtime, because that's sort of, it's after all the propaganda. You're going to get all the sort of MMA junkies betting off the back of that. I think the whales come in Friday lunchtime, Friday evening, putting down some solid money. I mean, even me personally, I know some people that are putting huge amounts down. That would definitely affect the price. Then you're going to have Mayweather shortening, because the odds just absolutely don't reflect on paper the chances that he's got of winning. In a boxing ring, you never know. Anything can happen. Literally anything can happen. So you can never be 100%. But to say McGregor's got a chance, for me, it's more like when you buy a lottery ticket, you've got a chance. Not very likely that it's going to happen.
It's a good analogy.
But yeah, you've got, and like I say, if Conor was a natural crash bang wallop, I'd be a lot more comfortable saying, well, yeah, he has got a chance if he gets in and his shot just happens to that. But Conor isn't a crash bang wallop guy. He talks like a crash bang wallop guy, but actually he fights like a counterpuncher. He is a counterpuncher. Look, if there's a danger for Mayweather, one thing that I have thought is, for me, to go in just trying to sort of nick on points and purely box and stay at a low work rate, that can be a risk against an all-out brawler. And if McGregor comes in and just thinks, right, well, I'm not going to outbox him. If he thinks he's got any chance of competing even on a boxing level or stand-up fist fighting, he's completely deluded. He's completely out of his depth, and he'll run it and he'll work out soon enough that he can't. If he goes in trying to brawl Mayweather, and Mayweather decides, after having a taste of power, purely, I just want to tuck up, and I think that's quite a dangerous tactic, because at some stage in a fight, suddenly you can get through with a shot, and then you've got a problem. But the likelihood of that happening is so minute. But it's just like, if you're going to give any kind of argument that he could do something, Conor, I think that's what it is. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it, despite the fact. I mean, I think that you've got in a few weeks, you've got GGG against Canelo, and that for me as a boxing fan, that's really exciting. That is when I don't know who's going to win. I think I side with Canelo.
Well, when we do your blog prior to that, we'll see if that changes.
That will be coming. But this, it's sort of completely different. For me, it's a completely different type of excitement about it. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I'm probably going to go to a bar somewhere and watch it, but it's a different kind of vibe, if you like. The whole thing. It's more like out of being intrigued. I think that attracts me to it. Curiosity, yeah, just to see. Right, this is a. It's been building up quite a long while. And the UFC, they've actually had as a tactic, it's absolutely, they've decided. I mean, they did it with Ronda Rousey, they've done it with Conor McGregor, and you just get these flow of press releases, and they'd always mention Mayweather. It's very cheap for me, very cheap PR. Mention Mayweather, we get column inches in the newspaper. And that's how Conor McGregor has been built up off the back of that. Now they've got what they wish for. They're going to fight Mayweather. I mean, for me, yeah, it's a gimme for Mayweather. It's a free for all at the bookmakers. I mean, where else are you going to get 25% overnight on your investment? Yeah, it's we'll see. Anyway, please God, Floyd, do the business. Keep boxing where it should be, at the pinnacle. I'm looking forward to it, guys. Thanks for watching. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, always appreciated. We're growing every week.